Welcome to Think Smart with TMFG. I'm Mike Connon. I'm here with Carlo Cansino, Senior Financial Advisor with the McClelland Financial Group of Assante Capital Management. Today, Carlo, I want to talk about, we see a lot of people that are approaching retirement.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different attitudes people have about how they're going to, when they're going to retire, why they're going to retire, and what their whole plan is. So we're going to forget about the financial aspects of our retirement. We're going to start to talk about the psychology of retirement and what the different attitudes are.
Sure.
So we're going to start off with the first one. We've all known these people. I've had clients come in and they put down the calendar and they can tell you the amount of days left.
The amount of hours.
The amount of hours. And sometimes it would be 5 years, 3 days, and 2 hours until I hit my retirement day. And every day they go home and put X on the calendar. There's one more work day.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's the way I'd like to live, but
for sure.
Generally, what type of jobs have you found these to be?
Yeah, no, we typically see this in the Canadians that are lucky enough to have a good defined benefit plan.
Yeah.
And you find that in the education system with teachers or, municipal workers in Ontario or hospital workers in Ontario. Great pension plans that have what they call the 85 or 90 factor, where if you are a certain age and you have a certain number of years in the role, then you're eligible for an unreduced pension.
Yeah, that 90 factor, they send you out a statement every year,
Yes.
and it tells you what date you hit that 90 factor.
Just makes it even more enticing.
They're reminded of that time all the time. So there's definitely a lot of jobs that do, and I think it tends to be pension related.
For sure.
And a lot of the jobs are jobs I wouldn't want to be. I could see why, the situation, some of them are just ongoing tasks that they have for some jobs like that too.
No, for sure.
And, I remember that used to be also, there was jobs like that with people who worked in factories and things like that, and they had their retirement date, and they wouldn't have the pension, they wouldn't have the pension like the government pensions,
right?
But they'd have their date that they were set as far as where they're going to go to,
yes.
And they just want to make sure they made it to that age, whether it was 65 or whatever it is. I'm going to work to this day, then I'm done.
Well, I think there is a something or an emotional thing about knowing exactly what your income is going to be and when you can stop working to earn that income.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's a good thing, that's up to the individual. But yeah, having a guaranteed income for not working is definitely provides some incentive to get to that date.
Yeah. Next, there's a lot of the people that, I find this a lot. A lot of people work with larger companies, and they're in, I'll call it executive positions. So they're making a decent amount of money. It's a pretty good job. They like their job and everything, but they watch a lot of people around them being packaged out.
Sure.
And a lot of times within the companies, I always say once you start getting over $200,000 or $300,000 a year as a salary in a mid-level executive position, there's a target on your forehead.
For sure.
Right. And what these companies are trying to do many times is bring in people that are new in at probably the $80,000 range to take over those jobs, and they'll package people out. So I find a lot of people in these situations are there, and they're within 3 or 4 years from retirement anyway.
Sure.
And they've been with the company for 20 years, so their package would be pretty good.
Yes.
And it's actually a pretty sweet deal for them in many cases, because it's almost same as if they were retired 2 years from now. They're going to get the same pay. They just retire now, then retire 2 years from now. And they don't have to go to work for the next 2 years.
Exactly.
So these are very interesting situations. I do see them happen a lot. What I talk to a lot of people, most people who've got packages that work this way have good connections with management.
Yes, right.
And the managers have worked with them a long time. The managers are told from high above they need to do some cutting in the department. Mm-hmm. And if these people make it aware to their managers, I would be willing to take some type of package if that was there. A lot of times it makes these decisions easier because...
Exactly. I mean, nobody wants to be in the position to have to let somebody go from the company from a top management decision when somebody's been in the role for the last 30 years. When you can come and have that good relationship and say, listen, I'm ready to go. Let me know what that date is.
Julie over here has told me she'd love it. And, that's when they're going through a list of what they have to do, it becomes a much easier decision for those. So a lot of times when I talk to people in those positions, I say, make your managers aware of your feelings. They can't let you go for it, otherwise you get the package anyway.
Exactly.
But it's good if they understand where you are in this stuff.
Yeah, open communication can't be a bad thing in that sort of a situation.
This is the other one I see many times. There is just one more thing goes on. So people are in their job, but they don't love their job at this point.
Hanging on by a thread.
They're hanging on by a thread, and they're waiting for either they can retire, but they're as long as it's good at this point, they'll keep on working. If one more thing goes wrong, they'll look for something else.
Yeah, you made the point. If the job, obviously being in a job a long time, you understand what the routines are, what the tasks are, and it becomes, just what you're doing. But if you are in the position that you can retire, the financials are in place, but the money is still good coming in, having that one catalyst to end the job, yeah, you could be hanging on for that and still work.
Yeah, life is too short to do things you don't want to do.
Sure.
Right? So along the time, if it's not financial anymore, that's a real time to look at what you're doing, because I see a lot of people spend too much time in that area where they don't love what they're doing anymore, and they're looking for ways out. Many people I've found have been successful when they left and went into consultant type of role. They have great experience. They've been doing this job for 30 years. They have great knowledge, and they come back rather than being in a situation where they're forced to do all this and have all their boss and everything. They could be hired on a consultant role, and sometimes the pay is even better than they were being paid before. And now they have the ability to work more on their own schedule and run their own shop.
Yeah, I think that's one of the draws, is the flexibility of, knowing what, having that good relationship, obviously, with the company, and being able to bill what you want to as a consultant and still be able to make that difference, or at least help out with the company that you've been working for the last couple of decades. Yep.
Now here's the other one. This is the sort of final one we're going to talk about. And a lot of people don't get this, but it's the people that will work till they die.
Yeah.
And we've seen, because we deal with a lot of high net worth people, we've seen a lot of these people. We talk about retirement. A lot of people that have the most capacity to retire will never retire.
Yes.
And, trades, I see this, lawyers. You don't see many retired lawyers. They work forever.
Yes.
Doctors tend to work forever. You finally get them retired when they're in their 80s, but doctors really do their job for a long period of time. Business owners are notorious.
Right.
They love what they do. It's very difficult for them to stop working in these areas. And it's funny, when I looked at these, I was trying to figure out something that they have in common. They all don't have someone you can hand your resignation to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So if you're working for the government, you hand your resignation forms in, and you have that. If you're working for a company, you give them your notice, you give them all that. I find all these jobs, there's no one for them to really hand that resignation to. It'd have to be to themselves.
Yeah, you need to walk away on your own accord. And if, you enjoy what you are doing and the compensation is good, how could you ever walk away from that?
Yeah.
There's nobody that you're accountable to.
These are their babies.
Yes.
And they don't want to let them go. And it's not necessarily bad. It's funny for sometimes when people really kill themselves and overworking, it's a bad thing. But for some people, they love it.
Yep.
And if you love what you're doing, you only retire from things you don't want to do.
Correct.
Right? You don't retire from things you love. So if you really have a job that you love and it gives you energy to go into work every day, if you're a doctor and you love your patients and you get enjoyment out of healing people, you don't have to stop that.
Well, then at that point, it's not work.
Yeah.
It's someplace that you spend your time.
Yeah.
Doing things that you are comfortable with and happy with, and you're still earning the same amount of compensation. I've seen a different perspective, though.
Yep.
In one instance, I've had a client who was a professor at one of the major universities here in the GTA, and he had just lost his wife 3 or 4 years prior, and was working because he didn't know what to do with himself if he was to retire.
Yeah.
Part of his identity was going into work and teaching at the university. And he had grand plans with his spouse to do a lot of traveling. But because he no longer had his spouse, there was nothing to look forward to retirement. So that's more of a sad reason why that one would continue working. But that is just another perspective of why people remain in their roles.
But again, it did fulfill part of his life.
Absolutely.
So for health-wise, it's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah.
The key is to understand why you're doing it, I think.
Yes.
And understand once it's not financial, and to be able to ease back on it.
Sure.
To understand you don't have to work 60 hours a week anymore, but very difficult for a lot of business owners to do that. But to go and say, I want to relax, I want to spend time with the family. And I guess the big thing is to always make sure you take your entire family into consideration.
Right.
Sometimes we found these professions tend to be a bit tough on the spouses because their whole life is their work.
Yes.
Their spouse becomes less percentage of their life.
Yep.
Going to retirement is a very... Believe it or not, sometimes retirement is a problem. I remember we had one person wrote a book on this because a lot of these people, because of how much they worked, don't really know their spouses that
Yeah, no, there's that getting to know you again
right?
stage.
So all of a sudden you're 65, 70 years old and you're going to start spending 40, 50 hours around the house. So it's a difficult thing to change in your life. Those are some of the different things we've seen, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. There's just different situations people are in. And the good thing is when you have a financial advisor, these are things you should come in and discuss with them. And why I talked about this, because I have discussion with, and so do you, about our clients every day, and they usually fall into one of these groups. And you can set different financial plans to work with each type of group. And the key is to know you're financially independent no matter what your decision is, and then make a decision that fits your needs and lifestyle.
I think that's the most important point. Being able to know that you're in the position that you could and you're choosing to continue to work because that's a part of your life, whether you're a business owner and that's just what you know, or because you want to maintain busyness and keep the routine. Working with us and knowing that you could retire is the biggest opportunity.
Having choice is a huge deal.
Yes.
It's funny. I always remember that story, and it talked about a dog that was tied to a tree outside a house. And they said he was tied there and he'd bark all day for like 10 hours a day.
Right.
And it said one day the owner untied him and he laid down underneath the same tree and never barked or said anything. Exactly. It was just the idea of being tied to the tree.
Right, not having the option.
Once it's your choice, it's fine.
Yes.
Well, that brings us to another episode of Think Smart with Team FG. Have a great day.